I don't know how I did that. Hold on one second. We will be live in a moment. Uh, Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Dave. We're running a little bit behind today. There's a funny story there, or maybe not so funny, depending how you look at it. I am here hanging out with Darryl T. Jones, who has a Kickstarter going on right now for RPG Essentials, Acrylic Tokens, with a link to it down in the description, and plus the other places you can find Darryl. Darryl, if you'd be so kind to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me, Dave. It is a pleasure to be here. I am Darryl T. Jones, also known as Splattered Ink. So you can find me and my art and whatever project I'm working on just by searching for Splattered Ink in your socials. Yeah, and I've been an artist and designer for games and RPG stuff for years. And the last 4 or 5 years, I've been able to do it full time, and I'm really excited about how this Kickstarter is going. So, very, very blessed and excited about that.
Yeah, so for those of you that may or may not know, we've worked with Darryl in the past on our Out of the Box Encounters project. You were essential part of the Kickstarter team in the layout of the Kickstarter page itself and supplying graphics and also advice, which was super helpful. And then you also did all the cartography for the maps in Out of the Box Encounters as well.
Yeah, that was a great project. For me, it was a really good learning project. I've always done, up to that point, I guess I should say, I had been probably more focused in the graphic design side of my skill set. I had even been running a graphic design agency for a while. But your project and another one I'd done similar to that, or at a similar time, helped me get full time into the gamer work, and I love it. And to when I was working on your maps for that project, it really caused me to have to think more about the work from the perspective of a game designer and less from the perspective of a game player or a GM. And I think I learned a lot from it. So it was a really good project. I appreciate being able to work on it.
Well, we appreciated having you work on it. You brought a lot of value to the team, and also like I really enjoy your art style. Ever since I saw the stuff that you did with Daubers, and it's fantastical. It's kind of whimsical, but it's also kind of bright and dark at the same time. And you know, I don't really know how to describe your style because it's not like super realistic and but it's also not like I want to say cartoony, but that doesn't seem right either. Maybe some anime vibes in there.
Sure. Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of influences that come in, and I mean, I don't mind it being called cartoony. The old Rankin Bass style for the original cartoon for Lord of the Rings is a big influence. Um, Todd McFarlane and other artists, Greg Capullo and things like that, are really big influences for me. So that kind of comic book vibe also really is something that's really where I started out as an artist. As it's grown, I've pushed values more and shadows and depth and things like that. So I do have a fairly unique mix of kind of the comic book meets sort of a high art painterly style that I guess is really unique to me, and I should embrace it. Part of me, I think all artists are probably the same, right? They kind of
Yeah.
criticize themselves, but I'm trying not to do that anymore because people like it, and I need to know that that's good.
Well, yeah, and I think the Rankin Bass comparison is a great one because it is a cleaner, brighter version of that, in my opinion. And that's not to disparage that because I love the old, I love that style as well. But you bring you kind of bring your own take and vision to it. It makes it uniquely yours.
Yeah, and I think another big influence of the character design and some of the details I put in there would be Jim Henson. Um, so, and again, there is some crossover. I mean, if you hold up, Frodo from Rankin and Bass next to some of Jim Henson's characters, they've got the same nose, and I use that big nose too. Um, but that, the dark playing with whimsical kind of style and thing is really what I want when I draw and create.
So anyone that is interested, you can find the link in the description for the Kickstarter, and I highly recommend you. Just, even if you're not ready to back it, you can at least check it out and take a look and see all of Darryl's awesome art. But you should back it. There are even super gargantuan minis on there.
Yeah, I really wanted to get a little closer to the size that um, some minis are described, or not minis, some monsters are described in their lore, and the 1 inch equals 5 foot, medium, large, huge thing. That's all based on a system that we will not be naming in this at the moment, but um, some of the monsters in their system, even that are called gargantuan, they really should be a lot larger.
Yeah,
So my ancient red dragon, for example, the wings go out further than the prescribed gargantuan size, and then the Tarask is a full 8 by 10 inches. It's a full sheet of my acrylic. So he is a set by himself. So
8 by 10. That means it's actually bigger than the previous size of Colossal
yeah, I guess it is. So that's
in one
it.
dimension anyway, because I believe 8 by 8 is like Tiamat, the Ancient Red Dragon. There's a couple of them now that exist. Um,
Okay.
and
Yeah, I don't.
go ahead.
Is Colossal from
Third,
uh, an older edition?
yeah, Colossal is from third edition.
Okay.
And then I feel like that later. I don't know if Pathfinder added it or if it was added later, but I feel like there was an awesome size category that went beyond that as well.
Yeah, I have a friend who's got a system, or it's a third party spinoff, but they've got like planet sized monsters and stuff like that. Actually, it's a dark matter, so we've got a crossover stretch goal with dark matter. Um,
I imagine you're going to hit it. You're not that far away with the way the
yeah,
Kickstarter has been moving.
yeah. Hopefully, we hit that here next week, and but I'm going to try to reveal some art from that stretch goal. So far, it's just stated what the stretch goal is, but I'll have some art for that early next week. Um, we're not doing any of those planet-sized creatures in it because that wouldn't make any sense. But it is going to be fun to show their races and a few of their monsters, so it's good.
Do you have I don't think I've seen it. Is the Tarrasque depicted
He
on
is
the
not.
okay.
I am working on the art for that as well. That will be soon.
I'm
I
excited to see what you do with it. And how you make it your own because I've seen there was a company that tried to do a Kickstarter for the Tarrasque for a Tarrasque mini, but they
Yeah,
literally called it the Tarrasque, which is okay because it's actually French mythology.
right.
But then they literally based the sculpt off of the art out of the monster.
Okay. Yeah.
So as you can imagine, they got shut down fairly fast.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to make all of the art I do unique but recognizable.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? There's definitely certain pieces that I've drawn that aren't in the Kickstarter because when I drew them, my intent was to mimic um, that particular depiction of the creature. But most of these are good, and it's a fun, and a lot of them, like you said, the Trask, they're really generic ideas,
Yeah.
or maybe open. What's the word I'm looking for? Public domain. They like the idea, so you can't
Yeah,
really copy
it's
Trask.
it's like a dragon. It's a mythological creature. It's
Yeah, but yeah. So
so in your own games, are you playing any in-person games?
not right now. I take that back. I take that back. My son started a game this past weekend. It was my first time playing in a really long time, in person, plus also as a player. Um, yeah, so that's fun. I'm
Is
a
he using the demo minis?
he hasn't got to him yet. The first session we actually didn't do any combat, which was kind of fun. Um, But yeah, that's the plan. He's got all those minis to play with. We'll have some fun with that. So
Cool. So in your own games, um, have you always been like a kind of mini person, theater of the mind? What is your
um,
preference?
well, I mean, I like maps and minis, but I've always used, because I'm an artist, I have always made little standees of paper, like little
Okay.
cardstock paper. I'd draw them and I'd fold them into a little triangle so they'd stand up and everybody could use those. But
So this
this
is
is,
the upgrade to that.
yeah, this is the next evolution of that. I'm excited for my next convention to have these with me, and
Yeah.
dump them out on the table. And I'm like, okay, so here's the PCs, pick one, and then I'll hand them the character sheet, and it'll be fun. So
D&D is made up a bunch of monsters, but Beyond Beholder and Mind Flayers. Someone just asked in the chat. But yes, the majority of them they have not made up. They're mythological creatures, and from tons of different myths and lores. What
yeah.
so what is your favorite mini that you've made? Do you like doing the bigger minis, the smaller minis? Do you have a preference, or is it just a particular piece?
Um, so even though they maybe aren't the most uh they don't sell as much. Like, I mean, the red dragon is my Pikachu,
Yeah.
to it's the marketing key centerpiece. But the giants, I just love the way they look on a map, because to me, I feel like I've really achieved the height, even though it's flat, right? Like, you can tell their heads up, the axe or whatever they're holding is up above it. And so if you go to the giant set on the thing, you can see that pretty well. So I really enjoy those. And then some of the more, like the Greek monsters, I think came out really good. The Chimera, the Gorgon. There's a few in that set. I think I call them the Mythic. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, the big ones are definitely fun though, because I could add a lot of detail. I could go around and put wrinkles around the eyes, and the horns can have like a little ridge around where the horn projects from the skull, and the skin's kind of wrapped around that. Um, so the more detail I get to do like that, the more I enjoy it. So that's, yeah, I don't know. I like it all. It's hard for me to pick, I guess.
So at any point, do you think you'll ever make your kind of like make your own monster pack, like of monsters that you've made?
For sure. Absolutely. There will be the Seeds of Decay will have a monster pack in this Kickstarter. It may be just as an add-on. It sort of depends on where we end up with stretch goals that last
Yeah.
week. Um, and I'm also offering that to my existing Seeds backers as a bonus. So if you're a Seeds backer and you're seeing this, you will get that pack for free. It's just going to come to you. If you're a physical backer of both, you'll get it. Um,
Are you, are you covering the shipping on that too?
yeah, it'll be. I mean, if they back the the new Kickstarter RPG Essentials, I mean, they'll still pay for shipping for that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I
But
mean
I'm not
that's
going
what
to
I mean
add
for
any
the
shipping.
previous one.
Yeah, I'm not going to add
That's
any shipping to it. Yeah.
that's actually very generous of you.
Well, they're super light. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm glad you think it's generous too, but they are
Well,
very
as
light.
someone who has to like, contract and figure out the shipping for things and how much it's going to cost, I understand what that means from your end. For an individual, it's like okay, it was like $5 or $10, but when you start adding, multiplying that by hundreds or thousands, it's like
Right.
those numbers quickly grow.
And I've made so many SKUs for this project,
Yeah.
um, that I'm going to make a headache for everybody.
Yeah.
Fulfillment and marketing, or manufacturing and everything. So it just keeps growing too, because I feel like it sort of can. I don't want to make it into a headache, but because of the nature of the item, and it's not like cardboard where you really, really get a big benefit from doing more.
Hmm.
Um, there's not much to tell me not to just make another SKU. If I want to make a pack that's both dinosaurs and subterranean, I can do that. I just have to kind of keep certain control over, everyone who's backed at the two for two of each or three of each. I can't let that grow too far because eventually I'll lose money on it. Um, but I want everyone to feel like they're getting a lot. I want them to have a big old tote bag full of these minis and be very happy with it. So,
So if someone were to back at the top tier right now, um, based off of what is currently in the Kickstarter, how many binders do they need?
I hope 6 is enough. Um, right now, the plan or the original plan was to send each binder with 20 pages,
Uh huh.
and it kind of averages out to, because some of the pages will hold 16 of like the medium size minis,
Yeah.
and then the Trask is just one page. Um, so some, between 16 and one, but only one of those is one. So let's say between 16 and 6. The average ends up about 8 per page. So 20 times 8 is 160. So that's enough for the original one of each set,
Okay.
but it's grown. Um, so it's getting big.
You're gonna need a bookshelf just for your binders of minis.
Yeah, so we can, but I can expand it up to 30 pages. So
Okay, that is
yeah.
helpful. And also, like, so there's three versions of every monster. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Color
I mean, it's,
versions, right? You just
yeah,
it's
they're
just
they're colors or other subtle variations. Like some of them have a helmet or they have a shield or some different armor,
uh,
uh, gloves, things like that, that I can add, maybe 20% to my art drawing time. And it makes it feel like a unique mini or unique, illustration
well,
without
it's
drawing a completely different drawing.
and it's also useful at the table too, because right, be like, I want to attack the one wearing the gloves. You
Right.
know,
Yeah. And like a lot of the things that don't have a lot of color options. So the skeletons, for example, I've got like a band wrapped around the arm bone. So I
mm,
can make it red or blue or green. And depending on, what you back at, if you get the different color variations, you could have an army of red ones and an army of blue ones, but they're still just skeletons, right?
yeah,
So yeah.
nice. Uh, so do you have any plans for the future? What's next after this?
Whew, it's hard to say what's next for this, um, because there's really a lot of options. This is done really well. I've already gotten a lot of comments from backers, and messages about this in the future. And I think a lot of that is fueled because they like what they see. But to get everything is a chunk of change, and that's fine. But they want to make sure they can get it later, right? Like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm only going to get the dragons this time, but I really want to make sure I can get the giants next time or at some time. So yeah, there will be support, and this will grow and go on after this. Probably a website kind of situation. Um, and then I'll probably do a season 2 next year or later, depending on everything else that's going on in the world, right? It just depends. But
yeah.
there should be another Kickstarter at least in the next 2 years.
So when is this one slated for delivery?
I've got November on the Kickstarter. I think it'll be sooner though, because 95% of the art was done. I had a handful of the really big ones to finish. Um, Time went so fast over the holidays, I kind of got behind. But get those big ones done and get the stretch goals done, and then send it off to manufacturing. So I hope it comes in, you know, by Game Hole Con, if not sooner, which is in October.
Are you able to talk about the dark matter stretch goal?
Sure, a little bit. I mean, I don't know how much I can talk about it, but
Well, or if you want to tease it out a little bit, like how big will that set be? What kind of critters can we expect?
sure. It is, I think there are 9. We're doing 9 tokens for that. we're doing all six of the races that are in it, or the heritages. I don't remember which word they use. Um, and then some of the larger tokens will be monsters. And I'll see if I can find the list.
And how did you enjoy drawing? It's a little bit, it's kind of more of a science sci-fi version of the game that shall not be mentioned. How did you enjoy, science sci-fiing them up?
Well, it's good. The style that I'm using for these tokens has a very like I can be loose in some places, but there's not a lot of looseness. So when I'm drawing armor for a fantasy setting versus some of the kind of sci-fi armor, the difference is, do I put pockmarks in it or not, right? So
Mm.
or if I add a little more shine to it. And so it's fun. Fortunately it's not like I'm drawing spaceships or certain architectural drawings which are very clinical and very dry. I don't really enjoy that. I like things to be a little bit more organic, but since I'm drawing creatures, it's still fun, and it feels pretty much like it's in my wheelhouse. So just less horns and spikes and I don't know, pock marks.
I imagine it depends on what the monster is. There could still, just because they're from space doesn't mean they don't have horns
Right.
and
Yeah.
spikes.
Yeah. I cannot find that list while we're talking on the stream for some reason. Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. Um, so you have the next two stretch goals announced.
Right.
I know.
The next one at 200K, which hopefully we hit soon. Today's going pretty well, but I'm not sure how fast we're going.
I'm sure
Yeah.
your finger is getting tired of hitting refresh.
Oh my gosh. I do wish that it didn't create such a refresh mentality, because
Yeah.
you get kind of sucked into it, and then you start your whole interaction with the world includes you pulling it up on your phone and refreshing it. I'm like, just let it sit. I've got 3 weeks to go. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if I look at it right now or in an hour.
And the worst part about that too is like if you're constantly refreshing and looking at it, inevitably you're going to see those rollbacks too, which like is are so disheartening. So
Right,
leaving it alone is definitely a good idea.
right. Yeah, so we have a Vitorjact, which is a cool monster. A brain in a jar and a mecha demon are the
Oh,
monsters
nice.
from the dark matter. So yeah,
Mecha Demon
brain in a
sounds
jar.
pretty exciting for us like Godzilla fans.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Speaking of Godzilla, I don't know if I'll end up drawing a Godzilla, but I have gotten a lot of requests for Eldritch horror monsters.
Okay.
So um, I will say right now that is on the list for a future project, not this one, because I think there's
Yeah,
too
I
much.
feel like
I
you could
want to do a
almost
lot.
do like a whole Kickstarter just on that.
Yeah, so I am excited about that. It's not something I've worked with. I'm gonna maybe even talk to Chaosium and see if there's a collaboration opportunity there, and we'll should
Yeah.
be it should be a good project. A lot of people like that, and can use it even in their fantasy games too, right? So
Well, I will say, just since we've been chatting, like you've gone up almost 8 grand on the Kickstarter.
wow,
So you're less than
eight
you're less
grand
than
or
10.
800?
What eight? No. Uh oh, maybe. For some reason, I thought it was at 82.
No, it was 89 when we
Uh,
started.
Never
Yeah,
mind. But you're less than, but you're closing in on that 200 mark, the next stretch goal. So that's pretty cool.
yeah, and that's a good one. That one was chosen by the backers. Because we did a poll in one of the updates, and traps and other like non-monster doodads was
Yeah.
the runaway favorite in the poll. We got some more monsters out of it too, which will be added to other things, but that
Well,
was
that
really
stuff is
fun.
really useful to throw on the board as scatter too. Once it's been revealed, especially in the middle of a pitched battle. Having a spiked pit or some kind of other trap that's been revealed that now everybody has to worry about, and you can also use it tactically.
Right. Yeah, and even when we were doing some like skirmish stuff to get photos and test out the product and play with it some, I was using some monsters to cover up things on the map that I didn't want there, you know? So now there's actually useful things you can use. So just if you buy a map and it's not quite fitting your scenario, but it's the map you have available, you know, because that's the way all this stuff works, right? Um, you can kind of modify the map a little bit. So I think it's good for that versatility.
Uh, so will you be venturing back into the cartography sphere at any time in the future?
Probably right now, all of my cartography supports my other projects.
Okay.
So to do it by itself feels like an easy win, but it takes time still, right? So where am I going to invest my time? So I only have so much of it, and I think most of my time is going to be invested in the stories I want to tell and the art I want to draw. So not that I don't like drawing maps, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, 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 for sure. And yeah, it'll be a loss. It'll be a loss to all of us, though. One of the fun things about Out of the Box was seeing your interpretation of the information I would give you, and what you would spit back from it. And sometimes you're like, hey, this was a lot of fun, so I did a night version and a day version, or the seasons, or whatever.
Yeah. No, that's true. It is fun. I think my favorite one was the probably the second or third one I did of that, and that was the one with the um was it a mimic that was in an outhouse? There was
Yeah,
some monster like in the outhouse.
it was
Um
the Adiug and Mimic that worked together, and the
oh,
Mimic
that's
was an
right.
outhouse. Yes.
Yeah. Man, it was like this cabin, a tree had fallen on it, and the adventurers find some mysterious thing that leads them to the outhouse. And it was just a fun map to draw. It really and referring back to that earlier comment about learning a lot, that was sort of where my brain like clicked over from I'm just drawing something based on instructions I'm given versus I'm drawing something that is going to be used by players so that they can have an experience, right? Like it maybe results in the same thing, but my approach was modified and hopefully improved by it. So
So Parks has said in the chat, your art would make really cool tattoo designs, as well as minis. Do we need to get a poll up to see which one Darryl should get tattooed on himself?
I think if I got anything tattooed on myself, it would have to be the splat face. Um,
Oh
so,
yeah, yeah, your
you
logo.
know, because that's sort of been my I don't know my what's the word I'm looking for. Um, there's a movie Avatar. There we go. It's been my avatar for 20 plus years now. So, but
I
you
I
know,
I I can say I can totally understand that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Although
got some.
not quite the 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I went into comics, or I hope to, tried to, in 2001. That's when I published Daubers, the comic book. And of course, I had been doing that because if you're a kid who loves comics, you draw them. You just can't stop yourself. So I'd drawn that first splat face probably in high school, which was, I graduated in 96. So it's been around a while at this point. But we were talking about versatility of using these monsters. You don't have to. Your dragon doesn't have to be a company that shall not be named Dragon, and you can still use these tokens. We have a really exciting stretch goal that I'm going to hopefully reveal in a few days, but it can be an exclusive for your show. A friend of mine named Kat Kruger and I are going to write a system agnostic encounter for every set. So
Oh,
you will be able to take your binder, just open it to any page. You'll have an encounter that's ready. You can start playing with no game prep whatsoever.
that's a lot
So
of work for you. For the DMs, that's
I'm
great.
really excited about it though,
Yeah.
because I want to reward the backers for it being such an amazing
Uh-huh.
Kickstarter. and but I have to also be realistic. I can't keep adding physical products. There's just a limit to what I can do.
Yeah, at a
And as
certain
we talked
point, you're
about,
gonna have to pay them instead of the other way around.
yeah. So, like I said, this acrylic doesn't really drop in price as the quantity goes up the same way that cardboard does. So, I thought this was a good way to reward them. And also, I want to write more. Writing has become a real joy for me. So, even though art is still, I think, what people want from me the most, but now they're going to get writing too. So,
Yeah. Well, it's tough when you have a lot of passions you want to try and bring to the fore.
yeah.
I'm just looking at your
Yeah.
minis and trying to figure out which ones would be the good tattoos.
Well,
Uh,
there's a lot, we just do my whole back and I'll do all 300 of them.
there you go. Nah, that would be making some of them too small. Tattoo artists don't like to work small, and also over time, the stuff just mushes together when it's small,
Right.
and you can't really make it out. So
Yeah, I'm at the age where overtime is starting to occur.
yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
my
I think
body
I
doing
think we are
things.
both are.
Yeah.
I don't know, the red dragon and the dragon turtle are really standing out for me.
Yeah, a dragon turtle is so cool. The color variations are a lot of fun too. I probably should put those on the Kickstarter page.
The dragon turtle. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much stuff. It's probably hard. I also really like your rock.
The rock. Oh yeah, the
It's like a
the
parrot version of a rock.
well, I mean it seems like the most I don't. I always lose my words when I'm trying to say this, but the one that's the most famous version is a more colorful version than I think it's typically depicted.
Uh-huh.
Because when it's depicted in dramatic art, the smoke or the lighting or whatever sort of mutes down the colors of the feathers. So I don't know. I like it. I did one that's like neon green. That was just sort of a one for fun. You won't get that one though.
Uh,
I guess I could do a poll. Do you want the neon green one?
oh my
Um,
god, you should do all the neon colors on it, like just kind of like you did, like colorful like the other one, but they're all neons.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Green was the most dominant, but it wasn't just pure green. It was neon variations, some of those
Yeah,
layers of rings. But yeah,
I'm
it's
trying to
fun.
think
I mean,
what would make the most sense for the coloration of a rock. Like, I think the best they could hope for is to blend in with a mountain, so it's not like they're really hiding.
right. Yeah. I mean, you could do grays and blues and gray and browns, tans. It could be kind of a sparrow colored, or just like a red tail hawk.
But
But
also, once
I
it's
don't know.
got you, it's got you in your sights. It's kind of too late. So
Yeah. Yeah. If you see it, it doesn't matter.
yeah,
You are toast. So
like that has always been one of my favorite throughout the editions. That's been one of my favorite illustrations because generally it's always been shown like carrying off an elephant,
yeah, because it's
just so you can
huge.
see like the size.
Yeah. I ran a session of the Daubers a long time ago. Now, this was before the Daubers board game even came out. So 2018 or 17, something like that, where they were exploring some mountains and they actually found like a human sized cave and it had been abandoned and one of the towers was collapsed and a rock had turned it into its nest. So you've got these 12 to 16-inch tall characters,
Yeah,
and a giant rock. Like, I don't know, it was a fun size contrast. A lot of sneaking around. Nobody wanted to get caught for that one. So
yeah. One of the adventures I ran like years and years ago, maybe decades, was like it started with them in the rock's nest there because they've been deposited,
oh yeah.
and for the rock's young, so they had to fight baby rock, and uh,
You know,
and then try and escape the nest.
that's good. Yeah. How did they get there? Was it just a you've got amnesia kind of thing, or was
No,
there
no, no. You've been picked up by the rock and dropped there. Like,
okay.
so like in my games, very early on, I realized like it always is super lame when the DM tries to make something happen
Hmm.
and gives the players like this pretense of agency. And I find if you just remove the agency and just tell them what happened and narrate it, they are far more forgiving than if you start running them through an encounter and are like, oh, this is only going to go one way. And they
Sure.
figure it out in the beginning, and it's like, you just wasted all of our time and we have no agency here. What is the point of this?
Yeah, I agree with that. I still mess up sometimes, because I
We
think
all do.
the players are going to do one thing, and then I can't, adjust quick enough, or I should be able to, but maybe I don't know, for whatever reason, I choose not to. Um, but it's similar to that. One of the things I like to do is I'll do kind of a cut scene in between sessions.
Yeah.
So it'll be kind of like that. I'm not taking away their agency. I'm just giving them something that happened in between. So they might wake up in a different location than where the scene ended the session before, but it still, just moves the story along, and then they have freedom for the next 4 hours
Yeah,
or what.
like when you're taking away agency to facilitate the story, I don't think it's a problem, especially if you're just blatantly upfront with it. Like, we're starting a new adventure, and this thing has to happen for that adventure to happen. I think the players are a lot more forgiving and can get into it than if they feel like you're just trying to trick them. Plus, the other side of that is players will then do stuff you never expected, and it's like, do you reward their cool thing and have them disrupt what you were going to do, or do you just heavily handedly make the thing happen anyway? Yeah, so like all that, it's so much better when you just avoid all
Yeah. I find that I try to be too specific sometimes, and that always bites me. So I'll say, so this one I don't think is removing their agency. It's just like they see something.
that.
A monster comes in, a rock flies in and grabs the mayor of the town and flies off. And they say, "How fast is it moving?" I'm like, "Well, and I say something. It's 120 feet per move per turn or whatever." And then all of a sudden, the character will pull out, or the player will pull out their character sheet. It's like, "Oh, I can move that fast." I'm like, dang it, it's still too fast. Like, no, no, I can
Yeah,
catch it.
yeah.
Like, so um yeah, I don't know, it's fun though. I mean, it's always just a problem solving kind of thing, collaborative problem solving, storytelling, and
Well, that's D
rolling
and D for
dice.
you anyway, right? But also like the idea that the players will always have agency 100% of the time is kind of BS anyway, because as a living breathing human being, I know I don't have agency 100% of the time. Things will happen to you or around you that you have no control over. It's just the
Yeah.
the natural part of being alive in a living breathing world.
Right, yeah, I mean, GMs can't plan for everything. The idea of a truly open world game is really overstated. You can try, but it's just you can't really do that. Everybody has some limit to their imagination and their improvisation. And right, so if you go along with the plan story that your GM has, you're probably going to have more fun, because all that stuff's already figured out. So
Well, I guess
painting
I
myself as a terrible GM.
nah, not at all. But I think one of the things that really goes a long way. I was kind of talking about this with someone the other night. Is like a good session zero is can be a catalyst for your players going along with the story, right? If you give them a chance to weigh in and kind of talk about what the direction the story is going to go in, then they're not going to resist it, and they'll be involved, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
like I'm running this game right now that's called Under the Dome, right? And it's like this
Okay.
post-apocalyptic fantasy world, and it was just an excuse for me to have motorcycle gangs in D&D. So we use like the war machines from Descent into Avernus,
Yeah.
but they're powered by magic instead of souls.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So and then one of the things that I hadn't thought about but the players definitely wanted was street racing. And I'm like, okay, we can do that. And then like we're like, what about my character wants to have been a gladiator, and part of a gladiator school. So I'm like, okay, those things didn't exist, but they do now. Um, and then like when they add these little details into the world, and then like there's two different groups that like the body mod, and they do them through different means. One likes to do it with mechanical parts, and the other likes to do it with biological means. And like the players kind of made up stuff with that and introduced a whole religion around one of them. So now it's like when we talk
Yeah,
about that stuff in the game, like they get excited because they had feedback.
right. Yeah, we have a game or what, an earlier game for daubers again. I mean, I ran a lot of daubers because that's
Yeah, because
my
you are daubers.
yeah, that's my heart game or whatever. A player was talking to me about their backstory, and they wanted to be kind of this reformed criminal sort of thing. And so we were talking about, well, why is your class a ranger? How does that fit with it? And long story short, we ended up inventing an entire brigade that's like the guard that goes to the parts of the town or the parts of the kingdom that are less civilized,
Yeah.
that are all this sort of work release program. You go, it's almost like the Black Watcher, but it was before I ever saw Game of Thrones, but
Yeah.
it's that same idea. You go guard the border, for a year, and we'll let you out of your prison sentence.
Well, it's not a new concept, right? Like,
Yeah,
there used to be a time where you'd go before the judge in this country, and they'd be like, "Well, you can like go to jail, or you can join the military," and that seems like a better option than rotting in a cell.
for sure. Yeah. So yeah, I guess it isn't a new concept, but it was something I certainly wasn't planning on having in my game. Wasn't opposed to it, but now it is.
So what are you playing in the game your son's running?
I am a sorcerer gnome with the pirate background. Um, so basically, and it's probably planting really bad ideas in my son's mind, but my character lies about everything.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just constantly, I introduce myself as something, other than my character's name. Um, I know everybody, even though I don't know them, but I just, tell everybody about that character over there. Oh, that guy's doing this, so that it's just distraction, so I can do what I want to do.
yeah.
Very, very Jack Sparrow style, but I don't know. It's fun. He's rolling with it so far.
Nice. How many people are in that game?
Three, plus him, so his girlfriend, and then my daughter also. She's also a gnome. She's a barbarian though.
Nice.
Uh, and then JC is a an elf. Actually, I don't know what her class is yet. We
Yeah,
haven't got that far. All I know is she's an elf, and very she's the only one that's like kind of sophisticated and portrays a character that makes sense. You've got this gnome barbarian that's like smash everything, and then me who's just causing trouble everywhere.
lying
So
his face off.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but
It,
we hijacked a carriage of soldiers that are going to go do something, and so we're going along with them now, and hopefully not going to die, but we'll find out maybe this weekend.
yeah, the short-lived Daubers game that you ran on the channel was a lot of fun.
I'm glad you liked it.
So if anyone gets a chance to play in a game with Darryl, he's an excellent GM, and he put up with my bullshit. So that is the key.
It wasn't, I mean, there wasn't much. I mean, I've put up with more, to be honest.
Yeah,
But spinning Rizzo spinning the blue turtle was a lot of fun. I still use that turtle. So that turtle
really.
is now in Seeds of Decay as an NPC. So that whole kind of little city village that we built for that game has
Yeah.
become an integral part of the overall story arc for Seeds of Decay. So,
Very important question though. Is there now a sidebar for someone flips the turtle on its back?
no, there it can happen though. There's no reason it can't.
Yeah.
Uh, but the turtle ends up being, there to give some clues about some stuff that's missing so people can find it. So if they flip him over, that he won't be nearly as helpful.
Well, that's true. I didn't think about that. It,
Yep.
yeah, I don't know. I can't help but get up to antics. The so one of my friends ran a um a one shot for us and gave us a bunch of gold, but not enough where you like could buy magic items with it. So he's like, so I roll up into the session, and I think it happened in more of an Arctic area anyway. So I had a
Mhm.
dog sled team with me.
Oh, nice.
I just spent all my gold on mastiffs.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I must admit though, I stole that from a player that did that to me in one of my games years ago. Only he didn't have as much gold, so he couldn't buy as many mastiffs. So, and then we used them
How many
later
did you
in the
have?
game. So,
How many did you have?
like a dozen.
That's good. I mean,
Yeah, no,
really,
a decent enough so you could field a dog sled team if you needed to.
yeah,
You know,
that's good.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I
if you
think
got
there
a
will
couple
be
hundred
a.
gold, what else are you gonna do but buy mastiffs with it?
I couldn't agree more. And you have to train them well. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So the game was a cooking competition. So we set up all the dogs underneath where the one of our rival teams were going to be staying, and then riled them up and had them bark all
Nice.
night. So
Yeah, they can't cook very well if they're completely exhausted from barking.
that was the plan. And
Yeah,
anyone who's had that neighbor with that dog that just won't shut up knows how annoying that is.
right.
Or if you've been that neighbor with that dog that won't shut up.
I was gonna say, or if you have that dog.
Yeah, yeah,
We had a bunch of rain here a couple days ago, and my dog is terrified of the rain. I don't know why. Like,
yeah.
you'd think he must have got struck by lightning before we were his owners. We adopted him. Um, and so he's inside for like 18 hours. And then finally he's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't hold it anymore.
Yeah.
Go. And in our house now, he can't get as close to us. Like he can't jump on the bed to wake us up. He's got his own room and we don't keep letting him in the bedroom anymore. So he barks. It's loud. But
I get
you
that.
know, I love
My
it.
dog has a fan phobia.
You like a fan that blows air? Like,
Ceiling fan, yeah.
oh
So
yeah.
one time there was a balloon in the room and the fan was on and it got sucked into the fan and just made a lot of racket. And ever since that the dog has not trusted fans and is terrified of fans that are on.
That's hilarious. He'll go into a room and like see it and back out or something.
Yeah, like when it initially happened, she wouldn't go back into the room where she normally stays. And she was just like camped out in a different part of the house. She's like, nope, just not doing it. Not going there. And she'll just look at so she'll go in the room with fans now, but she always looks up at them and with suspicion.
Well, that's funny. Dogs are
Yeah.
so weird. I mean, they're good, but they get so quirky. I think they're worse than humans.
They certainly can be, especially if you get like one that has a lot of personality to it.
Yeah.
Like this dog is weird because she's scared of a lot of things, but she's dog aggressive. So like
Oh,
if we get her near another dog, like it's you flip a switch and she goes from mostly a timid, sweet dog to like murder mutt.
yeah. Yeah. Remus barks at everyone outside. And as soon as they come in,
Yeah,
they're their best ever. But if they're outside, they're the enemy. And I'm
they're
like,
the enemy.
dog, stop
Yeah.
it. Stop it.
Well,
Stop barking.
he's got
That's
to
me. He barks at me when I'm outside.
he's got to defend the castle.
Yeah.
Yeah, our dog does the same thing until they come through the door and they see who it is. Same thing.
Yeah. But
So, have you gotten any another other games that we will not mention under your belt since I last talked to you?
um, yeah, no, mostly just working convention games. I do a lot of that. Um, I
Running
have
jobbers.
a Patreon. Actually, I have a Patreon game that's running. We're running Seeds of Decay, so they're going to be probably the first group to go through the whole adventure arc under me, other than playtesting. But in playtesting, it's always like just a session one offs, making sure mechanics work and stuff, right? But
Right.
as just players going through the whole thing. So that's a lot of fun.
Nice. How long has that game been running?
6 months,
Okay.
I think. And we're only doing once a month right now. I mean, it's a Patreon game, so but they're almost through Act One. So it's about a third of the way. I mean, the whole thing should be, if you're efficient, 20 to 24 sessions, I think. Um, but if you're, I've played with some groups that are not. So
I've been those groups. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I think we played Curse of Strahd, and it took us like a year to get through the whole thing. Playing
yeah,
weekly,
weekly, yeah,
and
yeah,
like,
that's
but we're also like all over the place. So,
yeah. I mean, if as long as you're having fun, right?
well, and that's
Uh,
just it. Like, we had this long to do list,
yeah,
a- which like every side quest that would appear would end up on it, or if we deemed our own side quests, we'd make up.
yeah,
The
yeah.
DM in
There's a
that game
lot.
was very good about putting up with our BS.
That's good. I'm hoping I want to play some Vast Grim. I have not had a chance yet to do that. I'm excited about it. I've got the first batch of stuff, and now he's got a new Kickstarter coming out next week or the week after. So the Morkborg kind of space metal campaign, if you guys don't know what that is, but check it out. I like it.
Yeah, so Morkborg is kind of like death metal meets fantasy, and then I would describe Vaskrim as punk meets sci-fi horror.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Uh,
It's good.
well, well, that's how the creator has put it, and it has like a much more kind of punk aesthetic to it than
Yeah,
metal. It's a lot of bright colors and neons.
right. Yeah, but I think as far as game style, at least the way what I've read, I haven't played it, but I've read through it. It feels not like dark supernatural horror. It's more of that what I would call like the heavy metal horror. It's just the monsters are cool and the situation is sort of dire, but you're not
Right.
like scared like an alien, right? Um, but it's good. Yeah, I like it. I did play Morkborg for the first time at Game Whole Con last year, so I've been wanting to play more of that. So
Yeah, those games were a lot of fun, and also like they harken back to a much simpler version of D&D essentially, because they're kind of all like that OD&D feel, OSR DNA's in there.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's fun, and I like, and maybe that's part of the old style too, where so much of what happens is just rolling on a chart, and that doesn't, and I don't mean that as like to take away from the quality of storytelling, but that randomness, that little dopamine hit you get
yeah,
because you don't know what's going to happen as the GM or a player, it's
right.
fun, right? It's just fun. So,
Well, we're playing. We're almost. We have one more session left of a mini series that were for Vaskrim that's being run on the channel by Brian. And next week will be the finale. And basically that's how he runs his games at the beginning of the session. He just has people roll dice, and that kind of determines what the adventure is going to be, what the session's going to be. And as far as you still tell a story, it's just not the same as like having a narrative driven written out plot. It's the story becomes instead what happens at the table because of what the players do and how they interact with these random events that happen.
yeah. Yeah, no, I get it's less as that sort of interconnected episodic big story. It's just I don't know. It's more like 80s TV shows where every episode was the whole story. It's not a whole connected thing, right? You know?
I feel like that's a better way to run any TTRPG, to be honest with you, just because I mean, I think we all have struggled with getting a group together on a consistent, regular basis. And then it's like the next session, like this person's missing or that person's missing. And narratively, you might feel obligated to figure out why they're not there in the game, or you have to deal with someone else running their character, or what happens if bad things happen to their character but they weren't there.
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
Episodic adventures go a long way towards helping
Yeah. Those explanations of, yeah, so and so, he got a call from his mom and left for this session. I've
super
done a
games are
few of
kind
those.
of really nice in that sense, like where you can definitely do the group of superheroes, and it's like whoever's available for the call are the people that show up for the game.
Yeah.
And then especially if you can make it last just the one session.
Yeah. That's cool. Because, I mean, that's almost like the West Marches version of uh, a game. You can just, whoever can show up and play, and that's your superhero team. I like it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd like to play a super game. I haven't done that probably since I was in high school either.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of good systems out there for it now.
Yeah.
We've played a couple on the channel. We dusted off Marvel Phase Rip. We did 2 seasons of that. We did a Cipher Systems Supers game on the channel, and way back when, Ted ran a handful of one shots for Mutants and Masterminds that can probably be found on the channel as well.
Nice. Nice.
Uh,
I think we have, actually, I probably have it on. Yeah. Can you see the DC heroes? But no, you can't because I've got a screen up. But yeah, I've got DC heroes back on the shelf behind me. That is, you can tell how old it is by how bad the box is beat up.
yeah.
Uh, of course, we all played, our interpretation of Marvel characters, but the
Oh, are you
system
talking
was,
about the old Mayfair game?
oh, I don't know what. Yeah, Mayfair. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I had that and ran like a session of
Oh, yeah. We liked it. I mean, it was, um,
it. Well, no, I
staying
say
up all
that
night and
not because
drinking
there was
Mountain Dews.
anything wrong with the game. It was because back then, like, as I had it as a kid, and every week we would just play a session of something new.
Right. Oh, I can relate to that too. There was always something new to play. So, because you got into it and you wanted to try it all. I kind of want to do that again. I wish I could, but yeah, I mean, that's why I don't watch TV. I already don't have enough time
Yeah,
to do all the things I want to do. So, but it's good.
yeah.
I'm
The
blessed. This is
struggle
an
is
amazing.
real when it comes to time. That's for sure.
Right.
I mean,
So,
especially now, like recently going back and getting a Muggle job, still doing all the nerdarchy things. It's like talk about juggling.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. So it's a lot to juggle. We got like you said, I've got to do the work to make the things, and then I have to play the things to make sure they're good.
yeah.
Go to conventions, do interviews. It's all fun though. It's all
Do
great
you know
fun.
what your next convention is going to be?
Well, there is a coin flip chance I'll go to GaryCon.
Okay.
Uh, it just like I want to go. If I don't go this year, I will next year, I think. But GaryCon seems like it's a more expensive show. There's not a lot of, you're staying in the little the convention housing unit there.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of like a what's the word I'm looking for? It's all self-contained.
Yeah.
I didn't find any options for like Airbnbs and stuff like that. So it'll be last minute. After the Kickstarter, I'll decide if I'm going to go and just hopefully just go up and have fun and make connections. And then I am probably not doing anything until Gen Con. I'll be just
Okay.
working nose to the grindstone. So what's your next one?
It might be It might be Gen Con. It's weird because now I have to actually like worry about vacation time, and I just
Right.
had to submit a mass form. So there's a small D&D YouTuber summit I was invited to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's on my list. I'm supposed to be running a D&D game, a D&D in a castle. So
Yeah.
got that, and then I put Gen Con on, and I don't know if I'm gonna have enough time to do them all, but we'll see.
Yeah, doing D&D in a castle is still a bucket list thing for me. So if you're listening, whoever runs that, I can run a game.
Yeah, they have no shortage of people that want to run. Like, there's so many people
I'm
like,
sure. I know.
so
All
many
right.
people like, can you put me in touch with them? I run a game. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't ask you. I asked the audience.
yeah, yeah. But
But
yeah, it is.
bucket
It's a
list.
lot of fun. It is a lot of
Yep.
fun,
Yep.
but it's
Good
also
deal.
very much a luxury vacation.
Yeah.
Uh, So
Cool.
we started a little bit late, and so now we're gonna end a little bit late. We're just around the hour
Okay.
mark. Final thoughts
Great.
before we head on out.
Yeah. I mean, thanks again so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to speak with you and to talk about our experiences together, both what we've done since we saw each other last and what we get to do together. So I can't wait till next time. Hopefully, we'll see you at Gen Con. If you haven't checked out the Kickstarter and you're watching, go to rpgessentials.com. It'll take you right to it. But thanks a bunch. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks for coming on. As always, folks, links in the description. Go check it out. And until next time, stay nerdy.